Thursday, where we're live streaming, where we are coming to you live on YouTube. We're coming to you live here in our broadcast with Zoom. And boy, have we got an amazing platform for you today, an amazing discussion. We're talking to some awesome, awesome service advisors, rock stars in the industry. So if you're a rock star in the industry, if you're a service advisor that wants to be a rock star in the industry, well, listen to what these guys have to say, because they are amazing. I'm super excited for this conversation that we're going to have today. And this is to be interactive. We are to have a conversation. So to make sure you know how to interact with us, go to the Q&A, bottom right corner. Go to the Q&A in the window for Zoom, or if you're on YouTube, go into the Q&A and type in where you're joining us from today. So we'll give you a shout out, those of you who go in there and type that into the Q&A. This is how you ask the questions. This is how you input information. This is how you're going to go further and deeper into this knowledge base of these professionals and these rock stars of the industry, their knowledge, their experience, where it is that they've taken that themselves to that next level. We're all legend in our own mind, but what is it when we get out of our way, when we get out and expose ourselves to the rest of the industry and see, oh my gosh, we can up our game. So here we are. Let's Diana is coming into us from Scottsdale, Arizona. Diana, good to see you. How is SWAP? Southwest Auto Professionals. Thank you for joining us. Chris with Frederick, Maryland. Nice. Tim, you're not supposed to be on yet, Tim. Tim with Idaho Falls. Rudy from Texas. Nice. Oh my goodness, how do you say this name? Gytis. Giddis from Chicago. Giddis, I hope I said that right. Giddis from Chicago. Nice. What part of Chicago? My brother just moved up to Mokina up in Chicago. Matt from Wisconsin, Dan's Auto Center. Awesome. Craig from Rochester, Minnesota. Nice. Very nice. Betty from Bellevue, Florida. Betty, how are you? I'm so glad you're here joining us today. This is going to be awesome. You're going to love it. Andrew, Long Island, says Jimmy's looking good. Andrew texted me this morning and said, hey, Jimmy, are you going to wear the black blazer, the real shiny one, the one that he really likes? Yeah, I got you, Andrew. We're looking good, man. Mac from Mac's Complete Auto Repair, Chandler, Arizona. I'm assuming. Mac, how you doing, brother? Oh, glad you're back stateside. Joining us from Chandler, Arizona. And Andrew, lunchtime here on Long Island. Andrew, glad you are joining us at lunchtime. And there are much more here on our panel today with us and as attendees. Some of you are a little bit shy, and that's okay. That's okay, because we're going to have a great discussion. Make sure you put your comments into the Q&A. And by the way, it's not Mac in Chandler, Arizona. It's his new service advisor, Christine. Christine, thank you for joining us. This is awesome. I'm glad you are here to hear from some of these rock stars in the industry and what they are doing to take it to the next level. We're going to talk about all these things. My name is Jimmy Lee. I am with the Institute. We are Automotive Business Excellence. We are taking it to that next level. We've got some awesome stuff happening. And thank you to the Institute for sponsoring this webinar as we talk about service advisors. You know him. He's legend, not only in his own mind, not only with his mother and father, is Lucas Underwood, the voice of Changing the Industry podcast. Lucas, this is where you come up on camera. Lucas is joining us from, are you on?
No, I'm here, but Zoom will not pick the camera up. So you're going to have to look at my picture, Jimmy. I'm sorry.
Well, here we go. We'll look at Lucas's picture. Maybe you jump off and jump back on, get that $10,000 camera to work.
That's right. We'll get it working here in a minute. So we'll be good. We'll be good.
Oh, man, I'm glad you're here with us, Lucas, because, we get to talk to people all over North America, all over the industry, all walks of life, from the single base, single guy with the wrench, the bucket, and the computer, all the way up to the garage mahals and what are their challenges. So I'm excited for the input we're going to have here today.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. I am so excited to be here. I'm excited to talk about this subject because it's something that is so near and dear to my heart. And you nailed it, Jimmy, because for so many years I thought I was nailing the service advisor role. I thought I knew what I was doing. And then lo and behold, I start taking some training classes and I'm sitting in the back of the room saying to myself, "Oh, shoot, I don't have a clue what I'm doing." And so I'm so excited to hear these folks and hear about their journey, hear about their story because we all grow and develop and we're always growing and developing, right? And so I'm so
Always.
excited to hear their story and hear them tell it.
Yeah, and in fact, we are getting together next week, Lucas, at the show that turned your life,
Yes,
ASTA
absolutely.
in California. Sorry, in North Carolina.
Hey, listen, if we're going to California, I probably should book some flights, Jimmy. I'm just saying.
Yeah, well, you're going to drive in and make sure you
Yep,
bring that waffle maker so that we can
you
make us up
got it.
some waffles.
You got it.
And speaking of shows, last week I was able to spend a week with Tim Chikarian down in California. There's the California part of it, Lucas. And Tim, this is where you come up on camera. Tim and I spent time at the ASCCA team weekend, coaching and training, growing, becoming bigger, badder, better in the industry. This is awesome. Tim, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing well. Glad to be here and very excited. That was a really, really good um, team weekend and annual training conference. ASCCA does a great job. And Jimmy, you rocked it. The points you brought to the table, we're putting them into play this week. I'm excited to see what we're going to talk about. And I can't wait to meet our panelists.
Yes. Speaking of our panelists, let's jump right into this. By the way, Tim is the owner of Bimmer's PhD in Pasadena, California, home of the Rose Bowl Parade, home of the Pasadena Library. And I'm going to come down there and visit you pretty dang soon because I got to get me a Bimmer's PhD t-shirt. We get that rocking for sure. All right, joining us as well is Allie Wages from Heads Up Auto. When Allie isn't running the shop like it's her own, she's enjoying life. Allie, how are you?
I'm good. How about yourself?
I'm good, really good. So where does this mindset come from that you run the shop like it's your own?
I'm so sorry.
You have a mindset that you run the shop like it's your own. Do you say that this is my shop and come visit me at my shop?
I do. I do. I take this place and treat it like it's my child, just as Chris does. We both love being here, so I do tell people it's mine, and I hold it to a very high standard for sure.
Oh, that is so cool. That's such a mindset. I would love for all of us to have that same mindset. We'll dig into this a little bit deeper here as we get talking in a second as well. Thank you, Allie, for joining. And my name favorite, Jimmy. Allie, you can stay on. Jimmy from German Auto Specialist. Jimmy, say your last name for me, brother. Aravello? All right. Unmute, brother. German Auto Specialist. We just did a webinar, phenomenal webinar with Raven. Raven is the owner of German Auto Specialist. Jimmy is the service advisor rock star there at German Auto Specialist. How are you, Jimmy? Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm doing great this morning. Love you guys' energy. Kind of it's starting to rub off. Sounding good.
Nice. When that energy is able to rub off and we can absorb from each other, it makes the conversation better, it makes life better as well. Thank you, Jimmy. I appreciate you being here, brother. And I heard that you have a new customer experience that we're going to deep dive in on the customer experience.
Yeah, sounds good.
All right, cool. Joining as well is Sergio Vega from Seiko's Auto Service. We were able to spend some time down at the ASCCA team weekend this last weekend as well. Sergio, how are you, brother?
Good morning. I'm doing good, Jimmy. Good morning from Southern California. Doing nice.
Yeah, what's the weather like today?
Actually, it's pretty gloomy, believe it or not.
Oh, no.
Yeah,
No.
that's just the California weather that we get here sometimes. One week it'll be 105, the next week it's 75. So,
Well, the gorgeous thing that you prearranged for me is it was 115 4 days before I arrived, and then it was beautiful 70 degrees the whole time of ASCCA weekend. So, Sergio, thank you for arranging that for me. I really appreciate that.
of course.
Nice. Well, let's deep dive into this conversation. I don't know if Mr. Lucas Underwood is ever going to get his camera to work, but it doesn't matter. He will be the voice of God today. Is he still
Oh
on?
man, you're gonna put it like that, Jimmy? Come on now, come on now.
Hey, well, Jiminy Cricket, when you're coming from up above and we don't see you,
Well, look, I'm not going to say anything bad about Zoom, but this does look like a little bit of a Zoom problem. So, my camera's working on my end, but not in Zoom. But hey, I'm happy to be here nonetheless.
yeah. Yeah. So, Lucas, let's talk first. Jump
Yeah.
into this idea, and you guys, Ali, Jimmy, Sergio, jump into this as well. Lucas was talking to me before about this legend. We're legend in our own mind. I mean, these are my words. Legend. We're legend in our own mind until we get some coaching and training. We think our
Yes.
dance moves are fly until we get into that ballet class, and then we discover, oh gosh, there's so much more I can learn.
Yeah.
What's that? What did that look like for you, Lucas?
Well, it was really interesting because at the time I had joined these Facebook groups like the Auto Shop Owners Group on Facebook. And I think Tim would probably agree. We've all experienced this at one point or another, especially if you're an owner that's been a technician and you jump into this role of running a shop. And the first thing you hear everybody say is raise your rates, charge more, charge what you're worth, set it up to where you're billing properly. And that's all well and great until you start doing it and you start upsetting clients. And so I'll never forget the very first experience I had with this. I had hired a business coach at the time, and they were telling me the things that I needed to do and how I needed to charge, and I couldn't accept client supplied parts, and I had to charge a little bit more for my parts and all of these things. And I tried to implement it in my very first call with the client. And man alive, did it blow up in my face. And I called my coach and I was upset about it, and he laughs at me and he said, "Hey man, it takes skill to be able to do this, right?" And I thought I was skilled, right? Unfortunately, what the skill that makes us good at fixing the car does not make us good at sales. It does not make us good at client communications, right? We have to learn how to take that role. So I'm really excited to hear from the folks on the panel today about how it is that they've learned and developed in that role. Now, many of them probably came in as advisors, right? And so they knew that was going to be their role. And so I would love for them to be able to tell some of these stories and their experiences to help those in the room that aren't advisors be able to pick up on some of this knowledge.
So what did you do? Jimmy, we talk. You got it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I come from a background in automotive. My dad, we're nationality, we're Guatemalan. He had a Midas back home in Guatemala. Came here, worked for Cadillac, worked for different shops, and I mean, so I kind of grew up around cars. So my first automotive job was with the custom shop, vinyl wraps, audio systems, all that good stuff. So
Were you teching or were you advising?
I was teching and advising. It was kind of like throwing my own pass, pitching my own ball. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it kind of adapted, kind of being like a football player. You're a receiver, but you're also kind of multiple locations at once, and it helps to kind of. I think with me, it was just kind of learning the playbooks, how it works, and then moving. Now, as we went to a different shop, and now being here at Germanato, where at the prior shop, we had like the owner there all times 24/7, where now my position here is like, hey, the owner's like, here's the keys, this is what I expect from you, I'm going to set you up with the tools, and going forward, anything you need, the institute being one of them. Hey, I went to the training last week, and it was one of those where like I knew I was part of it. I knew he got me all squared away with you guys, and but I didn't know what it was because it was kind of on the big. And once I was there in person with Tim and with Brian, with everybody that was there, you kind of start learning. But yeah, as far as going back to that subject, is it's just kind of learning the playbook. Kind of you going from one team, and you were on defense, now you're moving to the offense, or your offense, now you're in defense, and okay, now
Absolutely.
It's a different playbook. The team, the sport's the same. And the foundation, I guess, but now the plays are different. The Chargers and the Raiders, different play calls, different, so yeah.
Jimmy, one of the things that stands out to me about that, because that's a great point, and just the analogy of being on the same team but being in a different division of the team. One thing that I hear a lot of technicians, you know, as they move into either shop ownership or they say, hey, I'm aging out, I'm moving into the advisor role. One of the things I hear them say is, oh my gosh, I didn't realize that even just the word I use when I use the word, I shouldn't have said and, or I shouldn't have said I should
Or
have said
but.
something different. Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so it's just even word choice in that advisor role is so critical. Is that something that you learned when you kind of first took over the advisor position?
Yeah, yeah. I'm still learning. One thing that I know that I need to work on sometimes is the speed of how I talk,
Right.
and it's an ever learning, I think it's part sales, but part also knowing what you're selling, and cars are, ever updating and evolving. So, it's also, getting that information kind of put together with the foundation, the basics.
For sure.
Yeah, that's
Absolutely.
true. And those of you who are listening, do you find that it's a different skill to go from teching to service advising? And those that are owners to go from advising to ownership, or to go from teching to ownership? Do you find that that's a different set of skills? And Allie, I want to open this to you. Did you go from teching to service advising to managing? What's your journey? What did that look like?
So, my journey did not start here at Heads Up Automotive. I actually started at a local dealership, as a lube advisor. So I started with very, very, very little experience. Worked my way up to main shop, was overseeing, everybody and everything that they were doing. But then, I found Chris, and I've been with Heads Up for almost 5 years now. I've always, I guess you could say, advised, but I was such a baby at it that I didn't know what this job entailed. I didn't know, how to communicate properly with my customers, how to be successful in this job. So, no technician experience, all advisor experience, and, going from advisor to manager to, running the shop full time. Yes, there's some things that I have learned along the way that I've had to change of being advisor to, manager, but all in all, I mean, just the communication is key with us. But yeah, that's about it.
Nice. That's quite the journey to come up through a dealership and to find Chris
Yeah.
here 5 years ago. That's awesome. That's cool. I think Tim came up through the dealership too. Didn't
Yes,
you come
sir.
up through BMW?
Yes, sir.
What was that like, going from tech into advising or teching to ownership?
Mine was a little different. I actually left the dealership as a tech and started a one stall, 1,800 square foot shop doing one man everything. And um, my landlord pushed me into my landlord, my wife, and my situations pushed me into the growth I was not ready for. And I had to assume the property, the shop in the front, which was not a shop. So I had to build a shop with three stalls and all kinds of stuff. And then from there, I was now the service advisor, which I was not prepared for. So there was a whole journey with the Institute through that. But I'll tell you, my most challenging and most fun transition playing the sport on a different side was being an owner and letting go of all of those positions when you played all of those positions. Because when you played all those positions and you're the dude and you're the peacock personality like I am, then you kind of want to put your hands in everything. But building good systems and processes, like Jimmy said, being able to count on your Allie, your Sergio, your Jimmy is just, it's a different mindset. And there lies the leadership. And I think that's where we go with the next level of, wow, the Institute can still take me to that next level and
Absolutely.
broader horizons. So I enjoyed the whole experience. It gives you a different vantage point when you worked at the dealer, but working with people and in the independent world, totally different experience. And I'm sure the advisors would agree.
Yeah, yeah. And Sergio, your experience, did you come up through being a tech and then being an advisor, or did you step right into the advisor role?
So mine is actually pretty similar to how Allie's is. So I started at a local dealership, but not a service advisor, neither a tech. I started as a porter from the ground up, and my perspective was totally outside the point of view. I saw everything from the service advisors to the managers to how customers got treated. And for about 10 months, I had always felt like I think I can do better. And it
As
was
the
just
advisor.
exactly. Actually, yeah. So I felt as though I could do better as the advisor. So eventually I got let go from the dealership. I was happy at the time because you know what? This is a good chance for me to move on to my next chapter of life, as everybody says.
Yeah, spread
I
your
found,
wings, find that new adventure. Yeah, okay.
yeah, and I found Seiko's Auto Service next month in October. We'll actually make it my 5th year here. So pretty, very similar to Ali's. I had no technical experience. I wasn't sure if I wanted to be a technician. I never had that opportunity, but I felt I was better with words and with people and making connections and growing a shop and being that face of the company that can ensure people feel comfortable and confident with their vehicle being repaired.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Yeah, that and it's so true. Because everybody online is saying, it's a different set of skills. It's a different
Yes.
muscle set to go from being a technician and working on cars. Cars don't talk back to you. Well, sometimes they do, but for the most part, no. Working on the cars, you speak technician. Working with humans, you've got to speak human. Sometimes technicians can't translate and become a human speaking person. They're still stuck speaking transmission or speaking technician.
That is
And,
so
and then
true.
and then
So
there's
true.
yeah, there's another change there too, from advisor to manager, Allie, to go from being an advisor to being the manager. You've got a different mindset again, and then to going to being the owner as well. And Tim, you're doing that, and Lucas, you're doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jimmy, you talk about that and you talk about the different languages that we speak. And I think it's so important that we kind of talk about that for a second, right? And what I mean by that is that when we go up front as a technician and we begin to explain in technical jargon, if you will, to a client, even though we know what we're talking about, even though we know we're right, even though we know we're explaining the right information that they need, right? That doesn't mean it translates to them. And in many cases, it's kind of hurtful when you get in this situation. But I have had myself in a situation where I've been on the front counter trying to explain something that's a very complex and technical problem. And the client thinks I'm trying to rip them off because I'm giving them so much technical information, right? They're like, you're trying to confuse me. Nah, man, I'm not. And so it was so much of a rude awakening for me to realize that my job's not to provide them all the technical information. My job is to translate that technical information when I'm on the front counter to them in such a way that they can utilize this information to make informed decisions. And it was such a difficult transition for me as a technician, as someone with a technical background, that as I moved into that role, gosh, the thing that made me good at my job before is not making me good at this job. And that's heartbreaking for a lot of people, especially as somebody who is the technician moving into the ownership role. That's a
Yeah.
hard pill to swallow because it doesn't mean that you're good at that job. And I think it's so important for us that are owners, for us that were technicians wanting to be an owner, because there's a lot of folks in the group from starting an auto repair shop group, right? And if you pay attention to what they're saying, what they're doing, they're jumping in and they're trying to be successful as a technician owning a business, right? And it just doesn't work that way. I know Tim kind of learned that the hard way, like I did. We've talked about it. So, Tim, what would you say to the person that's in that role, the person that is in the technician role? They're saying, "Hey, I'm going to go start a shop. I'm going to be the advisor." What would you say to them as far as a wake up call?
First and foremost, no game is played without a coach. Get a coach.
Amen. Amen.
Oh,
And
yeah.
two, listen to yourself. Record your calls and listen to yourself. And if you like what you hear, dang gone, keep doing it. And most of us will listen and go, man, I need to
Yeah.
fix that. I need to fix that. So part of the growth was looking at yourself, being okay, or telling that guy in the mirror, hey, I don't like that. And then now comes the growth part where you actually have to surround yourself with positivity, surround yourself with, people that'll tell you the truth, and we got friends, but like we need friends that tell us what's up, just like the service advisors. right? And
Absolutely.
that's where the human part of it comes in and goes, all right, I got to be better for me. I got to bring me the best me to the game. And then you start realizing how the negativity kind of goes away and the problem solve itself. The unicorns come out. You got 3 right here, and you just got to put the right food out and trust your coach.
Exactly. Exactly. And the very, very first time I was in one of Cecil's classes, right? And it was an advisor class, and I want to say it was at Vision. And Cecil's talking, and he said, listen, you've got to listen to your telephone calls. I know you're not going to want to listen to your telephone calls, but you have to listen to your telephone calls. He says, the most important thing that you need to know about listening to your telephone calls is have a trash can next to you because you may get sick and you're going to need that. And I'm like, what's he talking about? Oh man, the first couple of calls of mine I listened to, oh my goodness, they were terrible. And we have to be willing to suck at this for a little while, right? It's not that we're going into this with the concept that we're going to be good at it. And I think in a lot of ways we see technicians that enter that advisor role and they're like, huh, hey, the technician's really the breadwinner of the auto repair shop and he really knows what he's doing. Buddy, you put yourself on that front counter for a few days and it will humble you. It will absolutely be a humbling experience.
Yeah, I've got a question for Ali, Jimmy, Sergio. What's the difference between, as a service advisor, you're in the service advisor role now. What's the difference between being nice and being kind? Nice and kind. That might be a concept you maybe haven't thought of much.
Oh, that's a good one. Being nice and kind. I would take it as being nice is like, okay, I'm gonna give it to you gentle, but maybe not as transparent. Where being kind, I'm like, hey, you know what? Sit down with me. Let me explain what's going on here, and it's the truth. But I'm not sugarcoating it. I don't know. Maybe something along those lines.
Love it. I love it. Sergio, Ali, either of you got any input here on nice versus kind? Ali?
I was kind of going to go the way that Jenny was going about it, just because anybody can be nice, but not everybody can be kind. So you can put on the front of being nice to everybody, but are you genuinely kind about it?
Yeah. Yeah. And I've been thinking a lot about this recently. There's a gentleman up in northern Utah, Curtis Morley, that is talking about nice versus kind. He says, nice guy. You've heard that saying, nice men or nice guys always finish last. Nice guys. And I agree with that. I'm analyzing some phone calls for a shop in North America right now. I'm not going to tell you even what state it's in. The service advisor is so nice. And this, Lucas, this is bless your heart kind of nice. She is so nice. She is so gentle on the phone. But when it comes to representing the shop, I can tell you exactly why your car count has gone down. Because she's being nice. She's not being kind. She's being nice.
Yeah. Big difference. Big difference. And Allie and I have a unique advantage. We got this Southern twang. So we come off as really nice no matter what. And we got some kind in there somewhere. But Jimmy, when you talk about that and you talk about nice versus kind, one of the big things that we have to remember, especially as service advisors, that we have to be assertive too.
Yes.
Right? We have to be assertive. And we have a responsibility. I often find myself in a situation to where I'm listening to advisors, and advisors are on the front counter. And as human beings, we have a bad habit of always wanting to tell people what they want to hear. And that's not our job, right?
No.
I know it sucks and I know it's painful. But and I tell all the service advisors I know, there's a documentary on YouTube. It was a PBS Frontline, and it was about a hospital, and it was palliative and hospice care. And it was the doctor going into the room to explain some really heartbreaking information. And I'll never forget what that doctor said. She said, "We have a responsibility to tell them the truth. I'm a professional, and I am bound by a creed to do what's best for them. And the best thing I can do for them is tell them the truth, whether they want to hear it or not." And so we have that responsibility. And so many times, because we think a client's going to get upset, because we think a client's not going to be receptive to what we have to say, We try to kind it up a little bit. We try to polish it. We try to nicen it up a little bit. And we can't get away from the truth when we do that. It is so important that we tell the truth. It is so important that we're their advocates. And, look, when we talk about service advisors, Tim and I have had a really long, in-depth talk about this a while back. The role of a service advisor, yeah, I get that we call it a advisor, but really it's a service advocate, right? We have a responsibility. We're there to serve that person. We're there to help them. We're there to inform them and guide them and lead them in the right direction. Guys, that's a big job. That's an important job because you're literally spending their money for them. And so I think that it's so important to recognize the power that comes with the service advisor role and the importance of being honest, transparent, and truthful.
And with that
Absolutely.
being said,
Can I
sorry.
chime in with an additional thought to that?
But let's get Jimmy in here, and then Tim, yeah, you're up next.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and with that being said, thank you. Something that I took that kind of resonated and kind of that took with me from the last training here is that part, the advocate part. Put in practice more the idea that I'm here for the car. I know you said that we had to be nice and kind, but separating mind and heart, like feelings and emotions, so from facts, and really learning to be that person who says, hey, you know what, I don't want to. Inside I don't want to do it, but I have to tell you that, hey, you know what, as my job is to notify you, I'm here on your car side. And one thing that I have to work on a little is that part, saying, hey, it's I can be sympathetic to what's going on your end, but you brought it here for me to check it, for me to tell you the honest truth, and it helps in the scheme of things. Because if when you fail to do so, it'll come back and bite you. I try to be nice, and by being nice, I set myself in a position where now I'm kind of like, oh man, I got to go deal with this tomorrow because now it's carried on a day or two, or now we're in a pickle where it's like, oh, so whereas you come straight forward with like, hey, I'm the advocate for your car. This is what it is. This is what it needs to be done. I'm sorry. You know what? And whatever you get from the customer at that point, yeah, sympathize but also say, know that it's like, hey, it's okay as the advisor. It is okay to feel a way, but it's also part of your job, and you kind of accept it as like, hey, you take it as a grain of salt or sand, where it's like, hey, and shut that part off and get this part going, because at the end of the day,
yes,
that's at the foundation. That's what's going to move everything forward.
Yeah, and doesn't that give you some extra oomph, extra power, extra confidence that you're advocating for the vehicle? This is what the vehicle is telling me the vehicle needs, and I'm here to tell you, customer, that this is what your vehicle needs, and this is what it takes to get it done. And you can be kind about that. You don't have to be nice, because nice won't get it done. But being kind and explaining that does. Tim, what do you got, brother?
I was listening to everybody speak and wanted to add to Lucas's point, and Jimmy, as a testimonial, said it. Every one of these advisors is a great advisor because they bought into the vision of their owners. And
yes,
their owners
yes,
start with that excellence. Their owners hold themselves to a higher standard. They've passed this on, and in order for your successor to buy into your product, first they got to buy into the leader. They got to buy into the vision of the leader, what he does,
yes,
what he says, how he does it. And if you're good with that, and then that's pure, oh man, you got that foundation. You got that foundation that Maslow was talking about. Now you can continue to add all of the other cubes. And then when you get to the top and your influence is stronger, you feel it with all of your staff, all of your techs. You give them a personality test and you figure, wow, look at this. My team is successful because I gave them all the success. I had the vision to do so. And now let them do it.
yep. Get out of the way. Get out of the way. And look, you say something that's important. If you're bought into the vision of the owner, and if you're not, then you got to have a hard talk with yourself and say, why am I here? Right. And so to the owners that are listening, we got to have a hard conversation about that. What is your vision? And do you have one? Right. Because if your team doesn't know where they're going, Tim Kite, one of the best motivational speakers and culture coaches I've ever listened to, always said that human beings want to be on a journey. They want to be going somewhere. right? They don't want a job, they want a journey. There has to be something in it for them. And I just think that's such a pivotal way to put it, Tim. It's a beautiful way to put it.
And isn't it awesome if we can go together? Because
Yes.
we're looking for a
Yep.
tribe. We're looking for our people. So as we come together, we can make that journey, make it better.
Absolutely.
If you want to get there fast, go by yourself. Be an individual. You can blaze that trail. You get there quick. But if you want to enjoy the journey, you want to have a great time, you want to have an abundance of friends and experiences, let's go together. I love that. So I'm going to bust out some Kung Fu wisdom on you. Kung Fu is a show that Tim is not familiar with, but he's going to become familiar with. And Jimmy, Ali, and Sergio, I know you don't know Kung Fu. It's a TV show from the 1970s where a gentleman holds out a rock in his hand and says, "Grasshopper, take the coin or take the rock from my palm," and he can't get the rock. But this is also the student will rise to the level of a prepared teacher. The student will rise to the level of the prepared teacher. So as your owners are inspired, envisioned, do they have that vision? You will rise to the level of their inspiration. So
yes,
they need inspiration. You need inspiration. Everybody needs coaching, training to rise up to that next level. We think we're the greatest thing since sliced bread. And then we get with others, we discover, oh, my phone calls really need some help. Because this service advisor that's answering the phone is very nice, but not being kind to the customer, not being kind to the shop, not being kind to the bottom line. Not going to have a job for very much longer if they don't get this taken care of. So to the mindset, Ali, talk to me about this My Shop idea. Is this something that you did, or did you embrace it, or did somebody say, "Ding, Ali, it's your shop"? Well, how does that mindset develop for you?
So I guess I want to start out with saying, Chris has worked significantly hard for this place, and it is, just been life-changing for everybody that's been here, but he gave me the opportunity of coming in and advising, and just one day he sat down and he said, "This can be yours if you want." He's like, "You can do anything that you want and make this your own." He's given me the upper hand. If I don't like the way things are going, then you have the upper hand to change that. Come talk to me about it. Tell me what you think. Tell me how you feel, because he takes all of our feelings into consideration. He wants us all happy. And every single one of us, I don't think we have a complaint. I roll out of bed every single day and I'm like, I'm going to my shop with my technicians. And, eventually I'll have 2 service advisors out front underneath me. And it is a very overwhelming, but very joyous feeling that I have every single day being here.
That is awesome. What a great vision. What great inspiration for you, Ali, to have that mindset and that base that says, hey, what you're doing here can be yours. I love that. I've been accused of being the owner of Auto Vitals. I've been accused of being the owner and CEO of Kukui. Everybody knows Cecil, so no, you're not you're not gonna think I own the institute.
Nobody's gonna convince anybody of that, Jimmy. Sorry.
Yeah, no. But Ali, I assume that same position of ownership of my actions, ownership of the company, ownership of the results, ownership of what am I putting out there. And many times at different conferences and trade shows, because I talk about my shop. It's not my shop. It's where I take my vehicles. My shop here in St. George, Utah, we work on things and making the shop better. And I remember when the shop was struggling in the $20,000-$30,000 a month range, and now they're operating at $120,000 a month range. Mindset completely different.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they. Oh man, I just love what they've done, and super successful too, which is awesome. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say let's change gears a little bit, because I want to go through the room here a little bit, because I've got some questions that are coming from some folks on Facebook who are actually listening, but they're not posting in the Q&A. I'm not going to fuss at them though. And so some of the folks are asking, how do you deal with the heavy burden of that leadership? So Allie's talking about, hey, there's an ownership component of this. Whether or not I own the shop, I own this experience and I own the things that are out front. I'll never forget Tanika Haynes. Many of you know her, Brown's Car Care, one of the most phenomenal people ever. And we had her on a podcast, and people know her by a phrase she said in that show. She said, honey, it's okay. My car runs just fine. It's out front. This isn't my problem. And so we know that being a service advisor can come with a heavy toll, right? And we know that owning the in and out of that service advisor job can be heavy on you. How are you guys managing this stress, and how has the training that you've undergone helped you kind of navigate that? Because I know that when I was a service advisor, when I was the owner in the service advisor role, I know that when I went to training, all of a sudden I realized everybody else was going through the same thing I was. And so those clients that had problems, it didn't feel like such a heavy weight anymore, because I realized this is just what happens in repair shops, where I was taking it so personally before. I would love to hear from each of you how this experience has helped you with handling that stress load on the front counter.
Right now, I'll chime in. Right now, I'm in a particular situation where I wear several hats in the shop. I run the place. And I also do service advising or advocating. And right now, we're going through some changes that are going to be going on here in a bit. And basically, we're losing our current service advisor. He's moving up. And from there, now I have to take on the role. Now I have to train somebody, but also continue the wheels in motion while that's going on. So sorry, I was a little. Someone came tapping on my glass here. But sorry, I lost my train of thought here a little bit. Someone came knocking on my window. Sorry. But yeah, it's having the plan set up. In my case, managing, taking the leadership role to make sure that we still keep everything together. But it's quite a bit. I'll chime back in on this one. Sorry.
Jimmy, that's exactly right. Yeah, it's an interesting road that we all get to go down. Sergio, what do you got, brother?
Yeah, I can fill in. So from my perspective, I really just started from scratch. I'd say the first 2 years I had done service advising, and I didn't really have much to go off of besides just this is what your vehicle came in for. And I never had, so shout out to Mark Sewell, my coach. He really was able to set a plan how I can present information from the concern to the safety item to what can save you money, some maintenance, and really be able to categorize things for the customer. And over time, I was able to get more confidence, and it's not something that happened over a day. I beat myself up, and to be honest with you, the first 2 years that I started, I thought I was doing pretty okay for myself. Now, mind you, I don't know what my ARO was at the time. Wasn't probably very great. Could need improvement. And I was happy with, oh man, I got this great sale. This number is high. It looks really nice. And my owner presented the topic of, hey, how about going to training? I'll just be completely straightforward with you. I was not very for it. I thought, oh, I'm comfortable.
Right.
And that's where I caught myself. I recognize that I am comfortable. And I remember, I don't know where I saw this, but it's probably somewhere online. Putting yourself in an uncomfortable position has really been able to help me grow as a person, help me grow as a service advisor. Being able to actually be the advocate, advise, educate, be nice, and be kind to not only a client. And coming back to the question earlier is I've been on both sides of the phone. I've been on the call where I remember I was 18 years old. I had an old Honda Accord, had the check engine light.
Ooh.
And that's what I brought it in for, and a squeaky belt. But I didn't know it at the time. And I got a phone call. We were on the phone for 8 minutes, and the advisor just boom, 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 blew things at me, and he gave me a price. And I said, I don't know what any of this is. I had kind of new cars. I enjoyed it, but I didn't have that full understanding, of course, as I do now. And I was like, I have no idea. And let's put it this way. I came in for the check engine light and a squeaky belt. I took it to a Honda dealership. I didn't get either of those two fixed, and I still spent about $2,200. I had about $4,000 in my bank account at the time, working part time. And
Ouch,
so
ouch,
I've been
ouch.
on that receiving end. And what helps me is I just like to be very empathetic. But you also need to understand this is what we need to do, and this is how we can achieve that goal.
Yeah, so maybe in those scenarios, Sergio, it's breaking it down to a phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. Maybe you can't do the full engine because you need a new engine. This one's about ready to die, but you can break it down to the 1, 2, and 3,
Yeah.
and let the
Jimmy,
customer decide.
Jamie, I'd love to add to this point because I think for Sergio, knowing his owner, being in the GPG group program, seeing the time and energy and effort Seiko puts into the business, like Ali said, Chris puts into the business, just like Raven puts into his business. This is what you have. How long? 4 years, 5 years in the APG program. If you listen to his phone calls from the beginning and seeing where the company was and how instrumental Sergio, we call him Suave Sergio in the groups program because he's so smooth. He knows exactly what the other person is saying. He listens and he gets directly to the point and answers their question. And from a Peacock point of view, it's like, wow.
Well done, Sergio. That's super cool.
Thank you, Tim.
I'm
Yeah.
proud of every single one of you guys. What the APG going to that group did, and this is, I think, what we talked about, Jimmy. What does it look like from the owner's point of view? And I had a couple of owners ask me, "You went to the advisor training?" Yeah, I went to the advisor training with my advisor who's new, so I can tell him I believe in you and we can do this because there's certain parts of that I need to do as an owner. And if I'm absent during that, how can I expect Mark to run the program? Right? I got to do my part as an owner first. I got to set the groundwork and then leave it alone, like Lucas was talking about. Walk away. This is what the expectation is. Do you understand it? Yes. What can I do to give you all the tools? Let him do it. And then 5 years later, this is what you have. You have a skilled service advisor that's now expanding the shop. And Sergio's an instrumental part of the growth of that business. Amazing to watch from an owner's point of view because it's not my shop. The same exact thing is happening in another shop. That's got to be what we're learning. That's got to be that gold nuggets, the unicorn food that we're being fed at the Institute.
Oh, I love it. I love it. And I love too that you were there, Tim, because then that gives you a level of understanding of what your service advisor was learning. So you could hold a level of expertise, a level of expectation with that service advisor. Hey, remember in the training, we talked about this. Remember in the training, we talked about that. Remember in the training, we're doing these.
Hey, Jimmy, the thing is that without accountability, right? Without accountability and without follow-up and without verification, you trust but verify, right? And I'm not saying that any advisor in the room wouldn't do that, but we're investing a lot of money to send somebody to training, right?
Yes.
And so it's extremely important that we verify they're actually following up on that. And Sergio, I'm going to tell you something. One of the most powerful things I ever learned is growth does not happen where I'm comfortable. Right? We've got to be out there on the fringe to be able to grow and to push our limits and learn and get to the next level. I'm reading this book and it's talking about myelin and it's talking about as we learn as human beings, what's the process? It's just like a muscle. You have to stretch it, right? And you create these new pathways of knowledge and information. And if we don't actually go back and put into practice the things that we learned in training, we don't develop. The shop doesn't change. But that comes back to culture. Right? It comes back to how Tim runs his business. It comes back to the fact that Tim says, "Hey, I'm going to empower you. Move forward. I've given you the vision. I've given you the destination we want to head to." Now, there's lots of ways to run a shop, lots of perspectives about how to run a shop. Some are right, some are wrong. There's many ways to skin a cat. But the point is if we don't empower our advisors to take off and run with information that they've been given, and if as owners we stand in the way, we just threw our money away. Right.
Yeah.
And for me, that's why I feel so confident sending my advisors to training at the Institute because I know they line up with me ethically. I know they line up with me morally. I know they are a good fit for my business and they do things the way I already do things and the way that I want to do things. Beyond that, their vision for our industry is very much in alignment with my vision for our industry, right? And so it's important to build these allies and send our people to training that aligns with us.
Oh man, I couldn't have said it better. And thank you for saying that. This appears to be a very good place for us to try something out very, very new and near and dear. Let's see if this will work. You know, you're never supposed to test technology when you are in the middle of a live presentation, but we're going to see if this doesn't work for us. And look at that. It doesn't work. Oh, yes, it does. Talking about service advisor training. The Institute has a service advisor training coming up here October 8th through 12 in Ogden, Utah. This is a 5-day course. Each day has a focus. Communication, that's Sergio's day right there. Communication to be smooth. Operations workflow, day 3. Day 4, negotiating strategies. Day 5, implementation. Lucas, to exactly to what you were talking about, implement. You've got to implement. You got to put it into action. And the beauty of this 5-day service advisor training is the follow-up that's going to happen after. So there's so much times that we go to training, we get trained, we're there, we learn, we come back, and there's a spike, but then there's a fall off. We get back into our old habits. So with this training that we are going to do, it's going to go into the spike, but then there's also follow-up that's going to happen after. And that follow-up is going to make sure that we are implementing at that high level of everything that's we learned at the 5-day is going to be implemented in day-to-day activity.
Absolutely. And look, I'm looking at the list of attendees and participants. And I know that there are some people in here that are shop owners. And I know some of them, and look, I'm not trying to call anybody out personally, but I know some of you are going to say, hey, I'm going to send my advisor. Nah, man. Look, great. Send your advisor, but maybe some of you should come too, right?
Yeah.
Maybe some of you should come and have this opportunity to build culture and to network with your team and to take into this training and say, hey, would this work for us? And how could we do this? And how could we implement this? But as we get back to the shop and the advisor comes in, what happens every single time? Oh, we're so busy and there's cars coming at us and all this stuff's going on. We've been without an advisor for a few days. Now we don't have time to implement a plan. So what is it? What happens? It gets put on the back burner. We don't engage it. We don't take it and run with it. And so all of that effort that you put in, all of that investment, if you don't invest into the business itself and implement it, it's for nothing. So I think it's very important for advisors and owners to come to something like this as a team, at least for the very first time.
Yeah. Yeah. To have that knowledge, that understanding of what the advisors are doing, going through, to hold them accountable to a higher level of coaching and training. And I tell you, this is for the brand new advisor that's 3 months old, 6 months old, maybe a year old, all the way up to the 5-year veteran that's looking to polish and become that fine-tuned machine, that rock star in the industry. This is going to be for all. This 5-day course, absolutely amazing. And yeah, I agree. I think we all need to be there. And as owners, you need to be there as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Cool. Last bits of words of wisdom from our panelists. We're going to land this plane. We've got about 4 minutes to go. You got 30 seconds each. Starting at the top of the list. Tim, what you got, brother?
Bond with your team, go to training, build an amazing culture, use the Institute, use the tools in the Institute, use the coaches in the Institute, use all of the things that you have that make this association, that make this industry amazing. And before you know it, you're rubbing shoulders with Lucas and you're rubbing shoulders with Jimmy and you're on the top of that game. So bond with your team, play with your team, grow with your team.
Nice. Thank you. Allie, and then Sergio, and then Jimmy.
Basically the same as Tim, if you're not a part of the institute. I'm still fairly new, but, you know, with the time that I have been with the institute, you know, I'm a lot more confident. You know, the communication skills are there now, and, you know, it can only go even further from here. And then just meeting a lot of people that I can network with and communicate issues with and come to a resolution with. So, I mean, this is the place to be, and if you're not a part of it, where are you at?
Yeah, so my take is have an open mind. We don't know everything. I think a great advantage with the APG when I started training is I'm the only service advisor at our shop. So when I started hearing other perspectives, different styles, you take so much information, you take so much, hey, this works great for Allie. Jimmy's great at doing this. Tim is an owner. He has a whole perspective of every aspect of the shop, and just blend it all together, make it your own. That's really worked well for me as a service advisor. Have that open mind, get training, like Ali said, network, and roll with it. Do what works great for you.
I love it. I love it. Jimmy, what you got, brother?
Yeah, it's like I said, it's an ever changing industry. Everything's always updating. Learn to grow, learn to learn. Don't just move something to the other side of the table without knowing why. You know, why you're doing it, how you're doing it, how to do it, and so later on, it kind of helps with confidence. Your confidence, you know, you don't necessarily need to know the ins and out of it, as long as you know that what you're presenting is kind, and you're being transparent. It's always a learning process, and like I said, I think that the big part is just like I said, learning to grow, not just learning for or just learn. You know, learn. It's like I said, from service advisor to tech, moving one to the other. Hey, one thing I took from this past training was have your tech shadow you. Maybe every tech, maybe one day, once a week. Hey, so you know how it is on this side. So you know it's not just, hey, let's just call this customer and tell them this now. Like, no. How about sit next to me to see what it feels like when, hey, if something is not done correctly or something does great, both ends. And also with owners, switching hats. Like, hey, I'm the owner. Yes, I got you here. I got you all the tools. But hey, let me put on your hat for a little bit to see how it feels to be in there and how comfortable I am. And if there's anything that you might be missing that I can see, or vice versa, you know, happy team, happy work, happy customer. So it does start from the beginning. Something that Tim brought up at the last training was, you know, hey, my idea is to be a better owner and then supply and provide this and this, because when you got guys whistling while they're working, you got guys. So that's very important, because that's going to dictate the how the work is going to end up. If you got someone who's dragging, and you know, and you as an advisor, you're not doing your part as advisor manager to kind of keep that environment that going, then it calls for some, you know, not the best of things, but again, learn to grow, and the institute, a big tool, like you said, you know, you thought you knew, and then you go and you're like, oh wow, like I'm killing cows here.
Nice. Well, thank you, Jimmy. Appreciate the kind words there. That is awesome, because we're legend in our own mind until we get with others and we discover, oh, my dance moves aren't quite as fly as I thought they were.
Amen. And you know, I'm going to tell you something, and I'm going to tell everybody listening this. I have struggled in the past with my business, and there are going to be owners listening. There are going to be advisors listening, and there are going to be technicians listening. And they may be listening to this and saying, yeah, but that won't work here. Yeah, I've never been able to accomplish that. And I have my way of doing things. Let me tell you something. And probably one of the most powerful things that's ever been said to me was, if what you're doing right now was going to work, it already would have.
Yeah.
And so if what you're doing is not working, if you have the Monday morning dread when you wake up and you say, I don't want to do this, I don't feel like doing this anymore, you need to rejuvenate. You need to feed yourself. You need to get into an organization like the Institute. You need to get your team involved with an organization like the Institute. And you need to do something different, because if it was going to work, it already would have. You need new knowledge to make a change.
Oh, amen, brother. Amen. Yeah. applause from every online. They're just absolutely applauding everything that was just said right there. And thank you very much, Tim, Ali, Sergio, Jimmy, Lucas, the Wizard of Oz, the voice from beyond.
That's it. Hey, listen, it's just your zooms, Jimmy. I don't know. I mean, it might be your hair scared my camera. I mean, I'm just pointing it out. That's all. I'm just saying.
Well, and to Andrew's question, he was asking, how much do I spend on hair product? Not very much. This is natural. It just does this. We are the Institute. We're here to help you out. We'd love to join you on your journey for excellence. Give us a call. We'd love to help you out. If you're available for that service advisor training in October 8 through 12, love to have you there. Those that are looking also to our summit. Summit is February 6, 7, and 8 in Amelia Island, Omni Resort in Amelia Island, Florida. Absolutely amazing location. This is an opportunity to work on you personally, an opportunity to work on your business professionally. You will grow beyond your ability to comprehend. This is going to be absolutely amazing. Look forward to seeing you all there. Questions, comments, concerns, give us a call. This is my cell phone. That is my email address. Love to talk to you. And with that, thank you very much.